we're going to move forward with the advanced project demonstrations. So this is where we're going to dig down a little bit deeper. We're going to take some of the concepts that we've covered over the last hour and a half or so, and use those and apply them to different scenarios that we might want to take a look at. So the first demonstration is going to be a pop-up message. And in this one, what we'll do is we'll set it up so that we have a pop-up message that occurs on the sales order that will warn us if the selected customer hasn't placed an order in the last 60 days. So we start at the sales order. And just a warning before we start, there is somewhat of a prerequisite to be able to develop this, and that prerequisite is that you can create a saved query that will show you the information that you're looking for. And we'll take a look at that first. So if I bring up a customer, I have created I have a saved query out there that I saved. Okay, it's just customer. No, it's not spelled right. APP Customizer Demo 9. And this query is the query that's telling me whether the customer's had an order in the last 60 days. So what it does is, if they haven't had an order in 60 days, it returns an X. And if they have had an order in 60 days, it doesn't return anything. And as you saw previously in our demo where we were just deciding whether to create a sales order or not for a customer or a vendor, we were able to use the results of a select statement. We selected the customer type from the BP code from the business partner master to decide whether we should create the sales order or not. This is just a saved query that tells us anything. Like we can use this for anything. But what I'm doing here is I'm grabbing the customer number from the sales order that's selected, and I'm looking to see if the last order date is less than 6 months from today, 6 months prior to today. If it's less than that, it means that they haven't ordered in 6 months. In that case, I'm going to return an X. So if you understand this SQL statement, then you're good to go. If not, then that's something that you would need to be able to either find somebody to create for you a SQL statement that matches the condition that you're looking for. And that's actually the executed query. If we look at the query as it's originally written, okay, it uses the 4.0 reference to get the customer code from the form, and it uses and everything else is pretty much the same. So it's taking the maximum doc date from the sales orders and comparing it to 60 days prior to today. All right, so that aside, and even if you don't understand it, let's just put that in a box and say, okay, I've got to have somebody that can do that part. The rest of the functionality is going to use everything that we've covered today, so you can follow along. So what we want to do is we want the sales order to alert the user if they select a customer that hasn't ordered in 60 days. So the event that we're going to associate this with is off of the customer code. We'll go to events, and we're going to put it onto the validate event. And for the fields that have the little link arrows, validate is usually the one that you want, because what that says is that when we're looking it up in the system and we're populating it, that's when we want this to fire. So if someone were to select a customer in a sales order, SAP would validate that against existing customers, and then it would put it in. And then if somebody went back and changed the customer, SAP again would validate it again. So this is the one that will fire each time it's changed or defined, but it won't fire 20 times as a result of the field getting focused. So we'll go ahead and we'll define something for validate. And for the validation, we're going to use our query. So this is where we want to, we're going to open that up and copy it. And I use this very often. When I build these, I will create the query in SAP first, and I'll test it going into again, going into the Tools menu. So if you have the sales order, I'll go into Tools, Queries, User Queries, general, and I'll pick my query, and I'll see if it works properly. If it's returning any errors, I can fix them. And once I'm sure that they're working, then I'll go back and I'll get from the Query Manager window, I'll open it up there, and this is the query that I want. This is the one that doesn't fill in the values. It keeps the field reference values. And I can go ahead and I can copy this and paste that into here. Okay, so with this in here, with this query in here, it's only going to return an X if the customer hasn't ordered in 60 days. That's the purpose of this. So with that said, I can say, all right, well, if the value that comes back is X, then let's create a procedure, and we'll do an alert, and we'll say, call it a 60-day warning. And we'll warn our order entry person about that fact. We'll go ahead. Now, we also can indicate whether we want this event to happen on in different form modes. So for this, I would say that it wouldn't make sense to have this in OK mode, because OK mode means that we're on the existing order and we're just looking at it. We're not changing anything. So that wouldn't be a good time to send a warning. We may want it on add. We definitely want it on add, and we may want it on update. So I'll leave it on both add and update. Okay, so if I create a new order now, and I do my lookup, and I select Norm, who actually I know Norm has had an order in 60 days, nothing should happen. It should just let me continue operating. But if I change Norm to a different customer, and I select someone that's a little bit further down this row here, this one here, and I tab out, I get my warning, because there's no order in the system for this customer. Okay, so this is just this is one way that you can really prevent issues. I know a lot of times it may not be 60 days. It may be if someone has some overdue balance on their account, you may want to pop up a warning, or it could be if there's a high balance, even if they're not within their credit limit, but they've got a very high balance. That could be something, or within a certain percentage of the, it's pretty much anything you can think of. There's really no limit. If you can put it into a SQL query and return a value or multiple values, you can act on that, and you can have it pop up messages or do any set of actions on that. So it's truly a powerful feature. All right, so the next, and this is our final demonstration for today, is it's building on the last demonstration that we did. What we're going to do is we're going to add the 60-day warning to the order add event. And what we're also going to do is we're going to prevent the order from being added. So in that essence, what we're saying is the requirement here is if the customer hasn't placed an order in 60 days, they can't place this order. Maybe not the most realistic scenario, but it's something that you could just take variations of it and figure out how that could be used. So let's go back and take a look at how we set that up. So first is the event that we're checking is the add. So when someone hits the add button, we want to do that validation. So we'll right-click on the add button, go into APP Customizer, and into the control properties. And once those are up, we can then go to the Events tab, and we're going to select the Item Pressed event. And again, this is trial and error. Again, you might say, why not the click event? It is possible that somebody can press the Add button without using a click. They can. It's the default button on the form. So somebody pressing Enter on the sales order would actually click this button without pressing click on the mouse. So we want to make sure that we get every possible way that this button gets pressed, and that's the Item Pressed event. All right, now here what we're going to do is the same query validation. Okay, so it's the same condition. If that happens, if the X comes back and they haven't had an order in 60 days, we want to act on that. Now, what we could do here is we'll modify this. So the 60-day warning now, we can go ahead and we can edit it. And instead of it being a message box, what we want to do is we want to stop this thing cold. We want to prevent SAP from continuing with the add function. And there's a little bit of a lesson here in terms of how to do that. On the macro side, we're going to load our macro editor, and I'm going to show you how to do a macro that does this. The first part is part of the macro is you can put a message box in here as well. So we can create a message box, and for the value of the message box, we put our message, and we say, you cannot save this order customer is not placing an order in at least 60 days. So that's our message. Now, the second part, which is the part that actually blocks SAP from continuing with the add function, is we go and we set something called a bubble event flag. Okay. Now, this is what my programmers have told me. I couldn't tell you too much about it. All I know is they told me if you want to block the event, this is what you do. The definition of what it is basically that a bubble event, if it's set to true, it will do what you say, and then it'll go back and do what SAP says. If you set the bubble event to false, it will do what you say, and then it will stop completely, and it won't let SAP continue. So that's what we want. We want to set bubble event equal to false. It's one of the few things in here that's technical that I learned, and I just remember it. And then finally, there's some settings on this window that need to be set properly in order to make that happen. One is that we want this to happen before the action. So before the item is before the sales order is added, we wanted this to kick off. Because if it happens after, then we can't stop it from happening. It's already happened. On the action success, we're going to set it to false because if we stop it from SAP continuing it, there is not going to be any success. So it's going to be false there. So again, this is one of those things. I have some notes. I always remember if I want to stop the SAP action, I do the bubble event equal to false. I set the inner event to ignore, before action true, and action success false. And that's the way to get it done. Again, we don't need this on OK mode. We're going to do it on add mode and on update mode. And we go ahead and we apply those changes. And now, let's just put some items in here. And I got to get the delivery date. All right, let's get something else. Okay, so that's what happens. It says you can't save the order. Customer's not placed an order in at least 60 days. Okay, but if I were to change the customer, and pick a customer that has had an order in 60 days, when I go to add, I have to add my mandatory field and a delivery date. Okay, I'm probably in the wrong warehouse for this. That's why, but it would then let it save. Yep, there we go. So that's essentially it. That allows you to go ahead and prevent entry of documents if some condition exists that you don't find acceptable in your business environment, in your practices. Okay, so I want to throw a couple of project ideas out there. There's a lot that you can do with this, and we've, just in implementations of projects over the years, I've seen a lot of places where this really helps. But some of the things that, like I mentioned earlier, you could do an incoming payment button on the Business Partner Master Data window, so that you could do it on Business Partner Master Data or on the AR invoice window. An incoming payment button, that's the second one. Adding field level security, that's another area where I've seen this used, or the need for it is definitely there. If there are certain fields or tabs in your forms that you don't have the granularity using SAP authorizations to prevent people from going in and changing. One example is payment terms, price list on the business partner. A lot of times you've got users who need, they can't have read-only access to the business partner. They need full access because they're responsible for updating contacts maybe or addresses. But SAP doesn't give you a way to give access to the business partner window without giving access to changing the payment terms or changing the price list. You can use this the same way that we used it on the address block field, so that if a specific users click on a certain field that they're not authorized to go into, it just basically takes the focus off of that. It could pop up a message and tell them they're not authorized to modify that field. So that's really useful. And you can make that even more flexible if you wanted to build that in a way that was very easy to manage. You could add a user field to the users table that says, access to terms, and it could be set to yes or no. And then with yes or no, you could then do a query when they click on that field that says, does this user have access or not, looking up the value of that field to then determine if they have access. And that way, no one ever has to modify the APP setup. All they have to do is go to the user table and either give people access or take access away to that field. So I see I saw a question come in. I just want to take a look at the questions real quick. Okay. Can we set this to be customer specific? Each customer has past due credit limits. Yeah, absolutely. You can. The query just needs to be modified to consider that. So instead of saying 60 days, you could have said select X where the customer hasn't ordered in, and then pull the value out of the field on the customer where you have the term set. So yeah, absolutely, Christina, that's possible. Will it let you save as a draft instead of? Yeah, that's really it would, because the event that we created is we created the item pressed on the add and the save, and to save as a draft, you would be going into the file menu, save as, so it wouldn't fire on there, and you could do save as draft. So yes, you can save as a draft in that case. And can this work on custom forms that link to user-defined tables? APP Customizer can work on every form in Business One. There's actually an integration with other parts of APP where you define forms, and I'll take a minute to show you that because I think it's a good thing to understand. On standard APP report definition, and if you haven't seen this may be a little bit new to you, but on the report definition, when you create reports, you can associate, let's just do something from sales. So like a sales order. When you create a sales order, that sales order can be linked to a form. So this, for example, this sales order report that's in this path is linked to the sales order. And what that does is if we go into a sales order, actually I had one open, and you right-click on the sales order, that tells APP that there's a report associated with this form. So that's the sales order report we were just looking at. Now, the need to associate reports with custom forms has been around since Crystal Wave, since a long time ago. So, so that was identified as a requirement, and the ability to add new forms to this list, okay, has been available as well. So these are the forms that standard. I'm not sure if there's been some new ones in this demo environment, but for the most part, there's a very long list of forms that are available in SAP. That you can associate a report or an APP customizer to. If the form you're looking to associate the customizer to is not in this list, you just need to go to Define New, and you can create it. And there's some help on how to do this, but you can just associate the form with APP. And once the form is defined in here, in this form registration window, all of the APP functionality that we looked at is available on that form as well. And then the final project idea is, I've done this at a couple of clients already. We've actually created rewards point systems similar to like a frequent flyer program or American Express points or credit card points, where you, as you purchase things, points are created. And we've used user-defined fields added to the main form that get refreshed based on form events like data loading to the form, changing the customer, to show how many points are available for that customer at any given time, how many points have been used. There's really no limit to it.